with me to Matthew chapter 15 today. Matthew 15, and I want to look at verses 21 through 28. The gospel according to Matthew, starting at verse 21, we'll land at verse number 28. While you're looking for it, how many of you have never heard me preach before? Can I see your hand if you've never heard me preach? Wow, quite a few of you. Quick disclaimer, I am a holla back preacher, okay? Letting you know right now. So if anything I say is resonating with you, it is illegal for you to just sit there and look at me and go, interesting. No. If you're feeling anything I'm saying, you can say amen, say preach that. Even if it's not good, say amen. It'll get better. Amen. Matthew chapter 15, and we'll start at verse number 21. And look at what it says. It says, leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him, crying out, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly. Jesus did not answer a word, so his disciples came to him and urged him, send her away, for she keeps crying out after us. And he answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. And the woman came and knelt before him. Lord, help me, she said. And he replied, it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Yes, it is, Lord, she said. Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. And Jesus said to her, woman, how many know Jesus is the only person that can get away with that right there? Fellas, I'm telling you right now, don't you try that after service to your wife or to your girlfriend. Talk about woman, it will be the last time you ever say it. But Jesus is good. He's good. He says, woman, you have great faith, and your request is granted. And her daughter was healed 6 months later. Some of y'all not even paying attention. Is that? No, my bad. I got a new prescription of these glasses. I'm sorry. It says her daughter was healed 10 minutes later. My bad, y'all. Her daughter was healed at that moment. Immediately. It's almost like what she said in verse 27 is what activated the miracle in verse 28. At that moment. I want to preach today, not long, about 6.5 hours, using this as a title, Get Over It. Get over it. Would you do me a favor? Look at your neighbor, get in their face, get in their personal space. Come on, say neighbor. Some of y'all are scared to talk to your neighbor. This is a friendly church. Come on, look at them. Say neighbor, get over it. Come on, find you another neighbor, the one you ignored. Say other neighbor, I know this sermon is for you. Come on, let's pray as we go into this. Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for your presence. Holy Spirit, speak to our hearts today. We have not come here today to be entertained. We have come to be drastically changed. Speak to us so clearly. Let us leave different than the way that we came in. In Jesus' mighty, matchless name. Everybody said, amen. Get over it. Grace City, I don't want to preach before I preach, but would you watch this real quick? Just watch this.
Hear me, God will often use desperation to push you into your purpose. God will often use desperation to push you into your destiny. In fact, watch this. Desperation is the door that breakthrough walks through. I'm going to say that again. Desperation is the door that breakthrough walks through. Some people wonder, how come I hadn't got my breakthrough yet? Sometimes it's because you hadn't got downright desperate enough for God to do it in your life, because desperation will open up doors that complacency will keep shut. I'm telling you, I travel, and people will often ask me, Robert, where's your favorite place to preach? Your favorite place to preach. And to be honest, I struggle to name a place, because I want to articulate to them that the effectiveness of preaching and ministry has little to do with an address or a destination of a place, but everything to do with the attitude and the disposition of the people that are in the place. Come on, I would rather preach in a basement with 3 desperate people than to preach in the Bahamas with thousands of bougie, stuck-up people who act like they don't need God to do anything in their life. But if you give me some desperate people, miracles will break forth. If you give me desperate people, mighty when you're desperate.
Hey, I was getting blessed. That's a good sermon clip. That's a good sermon clip. It's actually a good sermon. At least I thought it was. Until after I preached that very message, I did what every confident, secure, and emotionally healthy preacher does after a sermon. I went online to view the comments underneath that message. Now, in full disclosure, most of the comments were positive, okay? Comments like, preach that, bro, great message. There was even a few fire emoticons. But those aren't the comments that I have saved and screenshotted on my phone that I want to read for all of you here today at Grace City, okay? Now, if you remember, in that clip, that was not the full message, okay? I said, and I quote, I would rather preach in a basement with 3 people who are desperate for God than to preach in the Bahamas with thousands of bougie, stuck-up people who act like they don't need God to do anything in their lives, okay? That's what I said in the clip. That was not the full sermon, okay? Now, what I was clearly stating as a preacher and a pontificator of the gospel is that a meager but an eager audience in a basement would be preferred over a large, apathetic audience in the Bahamas. My juxtaposition of the basement and the Bahamas was solely to contrast a magnificent environment with a mundane environment. I was in no way, shape, or form trying to denigrate Bahamian people or basement people. I just needed 2 words that started with the letter B. But let me read to you some of the comments. It says, Pastor, in the sermon, you mentioned the Bahamas, stating that it has stuck-up and bougie people. How can a pastor say those things about a country? Have you met everyone in the Bahamas? Very distasteful of you to make those statements. As a Bahamian, I am offended and owed an apology. Next comment, sir, you have greatly offended a large group of Bahamians with your insensitive comments about the Bahamas. Next comment, and my favorite. The expression on his face when he delivered that line about my people tells me everything I need to know. That was flesh coming through, not God. Watch it again and watch his expression closely. Hashtag apology required urgently. Next comment. Wow, just wow. Sad that he used his platform to offend hundreds and thousands of people. Well, there's about 200 more comments where that came from. It was even one guy, I can't make this up, who started a campaign on Facebook to ban my ministry from ever preaching in the Bahamas. And the irony is that I would love to preach in the Bahamas. I would die to preach in the Bahamas. I'm gonna keep it 100. I would leave all y'all right now to go preach in the Bahamas. Come on, Lakeland is cool, but it ain't the Bahamas. Oh, and I just found it funny. I found it interesting, and to be honest, quite sad that some people missed, hear me, the transformational truth of an entire message, not because it could not be comprehended, but because they were offended. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, we are now living in the age and the era of offense. Have you noticed, or is it just me, that it seems like everybody everywhere is perpetually and continually offended about everything all the time? Oh, it is as if victimhood has gone viral. And being easily offended is no longer seen as a weakness of your character, but is now seen as your constitutional right. Oh, you know you got a right to be offended. Oh, you didn't hear what they said about you? Oh, you're not offended by that? Huh, I'm offended that you're not offended. Everybody is offended about everything. Oh, come on. Men are offended. Women are offended. The millennials are offended. The baby boomers are offended. The Democrats are offended. The Republicans are offended. The atheists are offended. The saints are offended. The New Orleans Saints are still offended. Somehow we're supposed to be in the Super Bowl, but the referee cheated. It's been a whole nother season. Get over it. Ooh, vegetarians and vegans are offended. Oh, come on, you heard about this, right? That there's a group of vegans that are now calling for the immediate removal of meat-based metaphors. They want a ban on phrases like, bring home the bacon, and they are rallying for less offensive and more health-conscious phrases like, bring home the broccoli. Animal rights activists have jumped on the same bandwagon, backed by PETA. They feel that some of our commonly used phrases and idioms are offensive and are actually encouraging animal cruelty. Phrases like, you're beating a dead horse, and you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, should be removed and replaced with less offensive ones like, you're feeding a fed horse, and you can feed 2 birds with 1 scone. That is a for real article, people. And I feel some of you today, I feel some of you are rolling your eyes going, oh, those vegans, those animal rights activists, that's so silly. Understand, it's silly to you, but it's serious to them. Oh, so serious that some of these animal rights activists were actually arrested. They went to jail because they were going in front of steakhouses with speakers and they were playing the sound of slaughtered cows in front of these steakhouses. And when the managers of these steakhouses came out and said, hold on, wait, y'all can't do this. Y'all gotta move. I had to. They refused to leave. They refused to leave, and they went to jail over this. And this is the variability of an offense. That an offense that seems silly to me might be serious to you. And an offense that is serious to you might be silly to me. And I don't care who you are in this room today, everybody has something. An offense that if the right person on the wrong day when you forgot to pray hit that button, you would find yourself in a jail cell right next to the animal rights activist talking about, I am offended. Y'all remember that game, what was it, Operation? It was before Fortnite. Operation, that little board game. You had to be careful what you hit, and the patient's nose would light up. Yeah, that's you. That's me. All of us have offenses that if we're not careful, your nose will light up like Rudolph. What do we do? Seriously, what do we do in a culture of offense? My text today is in Matthew chapter 15, but in Matthew chapter 24, this issue of offenses comes up. Jesus has just finished preaching this sermon, and the disciples come up after the message, and they're like, Jesus, how can we know the end of the age? Give us some signs that your return will be imminent. And Jesus gives them a litany of things in Matthew chapter 24. He says, nation will rise against nation. There's going to be wars and rumors of wars. He says, let no one deceive you. Many are going to come in my name saying, I am Christ. He said, there's going to be diseases and earthquakes in diverse places. And when you're reading Matthew chapter 24, you can get lost in all the earthquakes and all the diseases that you'll miss that little verse in Matthew 24, verse 10. He says, and then many will be offended. In other words, one of the Blues Clues for the second coming of Jesus Christ is a culture of offended people. Comes up again in Luke chapter 17. I want us to look at it together. Luke 17 is interesting because it says, then Jesus said to the disciples, so we know his audience, disciples. Any disciples in here today? Okay, about 5 of you. And the disciples, look what he says. He says, it is impossible. It is impossible. That got my attention because you got Jesus who does the impossible saying that something is impossible. What could be impossible, Jesus? Healing the sick, raising the dead, the Cowboys going back to the Super Bowl? No, all that is easy. Here's what's impossible. It is impossible that no offenses should come. Think about that. In other words, in that verse, Jesus guarantees you that offenses are coming your way. No need of praying them away. No need of trying to fast. If you are a living, breathing entity, offenses are coming your way. He promises you somebody's going to get on your last nerve. He promises you somebody's going to send you the wrong text message or email. He promises you that somebody's going to see you turning into that parking spot at Walmart and you had your signal on and they're still going to squeeze in front of you and get in there anyway. He says offenses are going to come. It's a part of life. But I noticed in the text, he did not say that it is impossible for you to not get offended. Because an offense and offended are two separate and distinct things. Oh, can I teach a little bit in here today? There is a vast difference between an offense and getting offended. An offense is what happened. Offended is a reaction. Offense is an event. Offended is a decision.
An offense says, you did it. Offended says, I will never forgive it. Do you see the power and the potency of what Jesus is saying in this passage? He says offenses, oh, those are inevitable. But being offended, now that's optional. And if offenses are inevitable, but becoming offended is optional, that means it is possible and plausible for you to live your life unoffended. Ooh, Jesus says, I got a power that not many believers tap into, that in a culture where everybody's offended and outraged about everything, you can actually live your life unoffended. Ooh, so here's the $1 million quintessential question I came all the way from Dallas to Lakeland to ask you. You ready? Ooh, I'm going to pause for dramatic effect. What is your current level of offendability? I know offendability is not in the dictionary, but you know what I'm talking about. How much does it take for you to get offended? Because the only reason I'm asking you is because as I was studying this passage, God began to speak to me. And he said, Robert, your current level of offendability is way too high. He said, I got big things in store for you, massive things in store for you, but you will never be able to handle the big thing if it keeps taking the smallest thing for you to get offended. He said to me that it is your level of offendability that is an indicator of the level of your spiritual maturity. In other words, you want to know how spiritually mature you are? How much does it take for you to get offended? That's how spiritually mature you are. Don't judge about how many scriptures you read or whether you had manna for breakfast and floated in here today. You want to know how spiritually mature you are? How much does it take for you to get offended? Ooh, so what God will often do is place your miracle on the other side of an offense so that you will be faced with a decision, either to stay small where you are or to grow up and get over it. Preach, Robert. When God said that to me, whoo, I didn't jump, I didn't shout, I didn't clap. I got offended. I was like, what you mean my current level of offendability is too high? I don't get offended easily. Oh, I was so mad. I didn't talk to God for like 2 weeks. Oh, yes, because you do know that Jesus knows how to offend you, right? Oh, Jesus knows how to offend you. Some of you got to get this image out of your mind of this mamby-pamby soft Jesus that just walked around kissing everybody in the lips and just, no, he did turn over some tables and make some whips. Jesus will offend you. If Jesus has never offended you, I submit you might not have a relationship with Jesus at all. Oh, yes, because he can't help but offend you. It's actually in his nature to offend you, not just to offend you for offense sake, but to change you. You know why it's in his nature to offend you? Because he is the way, he is the, oh, you said it, not me, the truth. And the truth sometimes offends. Yes, the truth will transform you, but it generally ticks you off before it does. Oh, yes, I often say that Jesus is like, he's like yoga pants, drunk people, and toddlers. He's going to give you the truth whether you like it or not. Some of y'all going to get that tomorrow. Jesus will offend you because every relationship that you have, runs the risk of offense. Whether it's relationship with Jesus or other people, every relationship runs the risk of offense. You don't get offended in isolation. So sometimes it's Jesus offending you, sometimes it's people offending you, and sometimes it's both at the same time. And that's exactly what's happening in Matthew chapter 15. The Bible says that this Canaanite woman, you understand when the Bible tells you she's a Canaanite woman, it's setting tension in the text right there. This Canaanite woman approaches Jesus. The Canaanites and the Israelites had centuries of offense, centuries of arguing and bittering. Do you know how much courage it took this Canaanite woman to approach a Jewish Jesus with his Jewish homeboys? Do you know how much courage she had to walk into that room that day? Come on, anybody in here, let's just make it plain. You ever had to walk into a room and before you went in, you knew the people in the room hated you? But you had to go in there anyway because like your check was in there or something. So like, whatever. this is the atmosphere that this woman is walking into. What would make a Canaanite woman walk into a room with a Jewish Jesus and his Jewish disciples? What would make her even approach him? I'll tell you what it was. The devil was messing with her daughter. And how many know when the devil is messing with your child, it will pull stuff out of you that you didn't even know was there. Come on, all the parents ought to be helping me out right now. When the devil starts messing with your child, oh, you will become a prayer warrior. You'll become an intercessor. You'll read the Bible back and forth. You'll be in here before the countdown, just lifting up your hands and nobody's singing. Oh, when the devil starts messing with your child, you'll get a big bottle of Crisco oil and start throwing it all over the room and putting scriptures. Come on, there's something about the devil messing with your child. So this woman said, I don't care what y'all think about me. Roll your eyes all you want, Peter. I am tired of my baby girl being up at night. I am tired of this demonic attack. And I heard that this man named Jesus has the power to cast out demons. I heard that demons tremble at the very mention of his name. So Jesus, if you are still in the demon casting out business, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. Oh, somebody right now ought to give God some praise if you know he's got the power to handle things that other people don't know what to do with. Hallelujah. She said, this is desperate. I got to cry out to you, and life will do that to you. Although she's a Canaanite, she's an outsider, she's a Gentile, and yet she's saying, Lord, Son of David, Son of David. What you know about Son of David? And you don't even got a covenant. That's what trouble will do in your life. Some trouble make an atheist go, whoo, Jehovah Jireh, I need you in my life right now. She cried out to Jesus, and Jesus heard her loud and clear, and went. She's like, Lord, Son of David, have mercy, my baby girl, she's being tormented by a demon. And Jesus goes, it's in the text, I'm not being cute. It says, he answered her not a word. Didn't say anything. Have you ever had to deal with the offense of being ignored? When you cried out to God about a situation that was desperate, and you didn't hear him say, I'll do it. You didn't hear him say, I won't. You felt like you heard nothing at all. What do you do with the offense of being ignored? The offense of being ignored is difficult to deal with because I'm so glad they brought that out there. It's as if I planned it. Because this is exactly how life works. An offense in the Greek, the original language of the New Testament, is called a stumbling block. That's what an offense is. It's a stumbling block. And this is just how life happens. You're living your life trying to preach at Grace City, and in the middle of your message, two strangers in the back with all black on just drop an offense. You didn't plan for it. This is what the offense of being ignored. Some of you right now are dealing with that offense. Maybe not by God, maybe by people. Have you felt like nobody sees me, nobody notices me, especially in our culture today, because we live in a culture where everybody has this unhealthy, incessant need to be noticed. Have you noticed? It's like, did you see my post today? Did you see what I put on Instagram? Did you see my Facebook blog? Everybody wants to be noticed. So a lot of us are carrying this offense of being ignored, and being ignored is sometimes worse than being rejected. Oh, yes, because when you reject me, at least I know where we stand. You know what I'm saying? You don't like me? Cool. Thank you, next. But when you ignore me, when I fill out the job application and you don't even tell me whether I got it or not, when I send you a text message and you don't respond to the text message and talking about I didn't get it, don't lie, because you're one of the weird ones that got the notifications that lets me know it was read. What do? You're being ignored. If that was me and Jesus ignored me, oh, I would have walked away. Just at the fact that he ignored me, but not this woman. She kept pressing. She said, Lord, please, this is my baby girl. You know how crazy you look to keep talking to somebody that is ignoring you? But she kept asking. She kept pressing. And I don't know who that's for today, but somebody gave up on something you were believing God for because he didn't do it like Amazon Prime in 24 hours or less. But sometimes God wants to see, will you be willing to keep pressing and keep pushing even when it doesn't happen automatically? Don't stop just because it didn't happen in 24 hours. That might be an indication that you got to keep pulling and keep pressing and keep fighting through. Oh, he just ignored her. So she didn't get a response from Jesus, but she did get a response from his constituents, the disciples. Jesus ignoring her, the disciples go, okay, obviously Felicia is not going to leave, so don't worry about it, Jesus, we got you. And I want you to see what the disciples say because it makes me laugh. Disciples go, Jesus, here's what we should do. Send her away. This is the disciples' reaction. Send her away. Are you annoyed? I'm annoyed, Jesus. Send her away. She keeps crying out after us. Some of y'all got it. She keeps crying out after us. Excuse me, where in the text did she say Peter or Bartholomew? Ain't nobody crying out after you. See, this is the problem with people that start hanging out with Jesus for a while and get position and sometimes been in church for a while. They actually get it twisted and think that people want you. Nobody wants you. We want Jesus. As a matter of fact, if you would get out of the way, I could get to the one that could actually change my life. It's not about you. It's about him, and it will always be about him. Oh, these bougie, pretentious, stuck-up disciples. Been hanging out with Jesus for a few minutes, and now their Instagram followers have gone up, and their reaction to a woman that is hurting and broken is, send her away. Oh, she keeps crying out after us. Disciples represent the offense of the institution, the church. The disciples are proof positive that sometimes the greatest offenses you will ever incur will not be from Jesus. It will be from the people who represent him, from the people who bear his name. What do you do when you've been hit with the offense of somebody in the institution of the church that's hurt you? You'd be shocked at the people who will never walk through those doors because they can't get over the stumbling block, the offense of somebody that said they were a believer and hurt them. Some of you in here right now are still holding on to an offense. Somebody in the church that hurt you. Some of you for years been holding on to it. All of a sudden, it's made you cold with people. It's even made you cynical and you hate the church. But can I please say this to somebody that's been hurt by the church or somebody in the church? I'm not saying the person was right. I'm sure they were wrong. But can I beg you to never, ever project the nature of man onto the character of God? Never project the nature of man onto the character of a good God. Come on, just because they hurt you doesn't mean God's gonna hurt you. Just because they stabbed you in the back doesn't mean God stabbed you in the back. Just because they weren't faithful, it does not mean that God is not faithful. Don't walk away from the church just because somebody in the church hurt you. In fact, God has a way of using the church to heal the hurt that somebody in the church put towards you. Don't walk away. Stay planted in the house of God and allow him to heal your heart. If that was me and I got ignored by Jesus and shooed away by the disciples, I would have been gone. I would have been gone. I was like, okay, you don't want to speak and y'all trying to send me away. Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I see how it is. No, you spoke to the woman with the issue of blood. You spoke to blind Bartholomew or Bartimaeus, but you don't want to talk to me. That's fine, Jesus. Thought you were a compassionate Savior. You're a jerk. Wait till I write my blog about you. I would have been gone. Not this woman. She stayed. She stayed. She stayed. And because she stayed, God finally spoke. Oh, I don't know who that's for, but if you stay, God will speak. He will speak. I'm glad you clapped. I set you up for that clap. The problem is you might not like what he says. Because look at the first words of Jesus to this woman who is hurting and broken. This is the first words of Jesus. He says to her, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. Can I give you the Robert Madu translation of that verse right there? In essence, he says, girl, ain't nobody here for you. He says, I know you got this issue with your daughter, but your urgency is not my emergency. I am here for the lost sheep of Israel. In other words, I have an assignment, a mission that I am on, and it is first to the house of Israel. Ooh.
I know she didn't like that. That's the offense of insignificance. Are you saying I don't matter? You saying I don't matter? Oh, so you're only here for the lost sheep of Israel. I guess I don't matter. I guess I'm insignificant. Now, I got to pause right here and do just a little teaching, because offenses are like lenses. Offenses are like lenses. You got to understand, whenever an offense happens in your life, the offense is just like a lens that comes over your eyes. So once the offense happens, you see it through the lens of that offense. Offenses are like lenses. The problem with us is, as soon as we get the offense, now we see it from our vantage point, and we think that our vantage point validates our feelings. So to the point that, oh, I'm offended, I must be right. But newsflash, just because you got offended doesn't mean you're right. It's just the way you see it. See, that's why I always ask when somebody says, they said this, can you believe they did that? I always want to know, is that really what happened? Or is that how you saw it? Because as soon as the offense occurred, you see it through that lens. Like, come back up here and help me, my man right here. Tell me your name again. Parker. Let's say I have an offense with Parker, and Parker, I didn't feel like he was saying amen enough to my good points in the message. So as soon as that happens, I have an offense. He doesn't like my sermon. He doesn't think I can preach, but I can only see it through that lens, but that might not be right at all. And this is the problem. Whenever we get offended, you put the lens on, and you're never even open to seeing it from another vantage point. And that's why you start yelling at the person you're mad at, because when you see it from their vantage point, you're like, Parker is blind, like you can't see. What is this? How do you walk? I can't see anything. And it's not necessarily that. It's just he has a different viewpoint, and I put mine on, and he's putting mine on, going, well, no wonder Robert is preaching over the time. He can't see the clock in the back. You see, it's two different vantage points. So that's why the best thing you can do, you ready for this? This is going to change somebody's life. The best thing you can do whenever an offense occurs, and as soon as the offense comes and you're seeing it your way, and you're like, oh, I can't believe. You know what you should do when you get an offense? The first thing you should do, watch this, profound, very deep. Pray. Close your eyes. Pray. Don't post. Pray. Pray. What am I praying for? Lord, give me clarity. Help me see this the right way, because I feel justified in this offense. But Lord, help me see this clearly. Better yet, get somebody outside of the situation that has some godly wisdom who can look at both of y'all and say, both of y'all are messed up. You both jacked up. You're both not seeing it right. Because offenses are like lenses. If we look at it from this woman's vantage point, it's insignificance. From Jesus' vantage point, it's just precedence. He said, I'm not saying you're insignificant. He said, I'm saying the house of Israel takes precedence. And just because something takes precedence doesn't mean something else is insignificant. I gave it to the first service. I got to give it to you. This is the equivalent of you spraining your ankle here in Lakeland, and you think it's broken. So they rush you to the hospital, and as you go to the hospital, they're looking at your ankle. But all of a sudden, a gunshot victim comes in. So when the gunshot victim comes in, it is all hands on deck. They throw you a bag of ice, and they start looking at the gunshot victim. How crazy would you look in that hospital? Talking about, oh, really? Nobody cares about my leg? It could be broken. Oh, no, take your bag of ice. I knew this hospital didn't love anybody. I am out. No, boo-boo. We're not saying you insignificant. We're just saying he got shot in the head. This has got to take precedence. But in a narcissistic, individualistic, selfie-saturated society where everybody's upset with me, myself, and I, anytime we don't take precedence, oh, they're making me feel insignificant. I am offended. If I was that woman, I would have left at the first offense. Not her. She stayed. She stayed. In fact, at this moment, she gets down on her knees. Worship team, join me. She changes her posture.
This is the posture of worship. And she just says, Lord, help me. Lord, help me. Come on, you know you are on the edge of your breakthrough when you had every reason to walk away. You had every offense to throw in the towel. But instead of walking away, you made a decision to worship. Oh, yes, that's real worship right there. When you could have quit, when you could have walked away mad, but you said, instead of walking away, I'm going to worship you, God. I don't understand it. I don't like it. It hurts. But I'm not going to let any offense make me walk away. I'm going to turn up the volume of my worship because you're worthy of it, God. I don't like it. It hurts, but I'm still going to worship. Don't walk away. Turn up the volume of your worship. Don't turn away from God. That's the time when you're hurt to lean more into Him and say, God, I'm not going to walk away until I get this miracle. I'm going to worship. And I thought the worship surely would have got God's attention. But He turns it up a whole nother level. He says, I see your worship, but it's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Jesus, the King of Kings, the loving Father, the compassionate Savior, called this woman essentially a dog. That is the offense of being insulted. Insulted. And some of you in this room right now, if you are really honest about how you feel like God has insulted you. The circumstance you're facing right now, you feel insulted. I mean, come on. You were the person that everybody came to for marriage advice, and now you're going through a divorce. You feel insulted by God. Your kids were perfect, right? You were the model family. Now your child's on drugs and everybody knows about it. You're like, God, what is this? I raised them in church. I feel insulted. He called this woman a dog. And when you read that, that's tough to read, but there is a cultural nuance we don't understand. In that time period, Jewish people called Gentiles outsiders, dogs. Dogs were outside. People that did not have a covenant with Jehovah, they called them dogs because dogs were outside. So Jesus is just fitting in with the cultural norm. But it's interesting, every Jew in that day used the term dog that denotes a wild dog. Jesus doesn't use that phrase. He uses a phrase that denotes a pet dog. Although the Jews said wild dog, Jesus doesn't call it that. He calls her a pet dog. And if you study this text, do your due diligence when you go home, all these scholars and theologians start playing defense attorney for Jesus. They're like, hold on now, he did call her a dog, but it was not a wild dog. It was a pet dog, okay? Just a cute pet dog, not a wild dog. And I'm thinking, either way you cut it, it's the dog. Wild dog or pet dog, he still called her a dog. You can't censor it. He did it. Called her a pet dog. I think in that moment she was ready to walk away. She's like, what else do I do? I've been ignored by you. I've been hurt by your disciples. You made me feel insignificant. And on top of all that, you call me a dog? I'm talking to you about my daughter. You're calling me a dog? I think she was ready to quit and walk away, but maybe about right here it hit her. Wait a minute. You call me a pet dog. All the other Jews say wild dog, but you call me a pet dog. I don't like it, but there is a difference between a wild dog and a pet dog, a major difference between a wild dog and a pet dog. You realize a wild dog doesn't have a name. You see a wild dog on the street, call him Bingo, Rover, whatever you want. He doesn't have a name or an identity, but a pet dog, a pet dog has a name. A pet dog has an identity. There is a difference between a wild dog and a pet dog. I don't like it, but there is a difference. Come on, a wild dog can't find shelter when it's raining or when it's cold. They've got to get under a bridge, but if you are a pet dog, how many know you got your special place in the house? You can find covering, you can find protection. There is a wild dog has to rummage through the street and find scraps and go through trash cans, but not a pet dog. A pet dog will always eat to the level of its master. So come on, if the master's eating steak, that pet dog's gonna get some steak. If the master's eating lobster, that pet dog is gonna get some lobster. Wait a minute, maybe it has nothing to do with the fact that you call me a dog, but everything to do with who my master is. Because as long as you're my master, everything else doesn't matter. You can call me a dog, you can call me a cat, you can call me a parakeet, but Jesus, I just want you to be my master, because if you are my master, I'm going to get every single thing that I need in my life. Oh, come on, somebody. Maybe these aren't even stumbling blocks. Could it be possible that these are stepping stones, that you got to get over it? Get over being ignored. Get over the fact that people in the church hurt you. Get over the ones that made you feel insignificant. Get over being made to feel insignificant. And once you get over it, once you get over it, then your miracle will come at that moment. Which moment? The moment she got over it. What if she would have walked away at any one of these offenses? She would have missed out on the greatest miracle of her life. No wonder the enemy wants you to stay hurt. No wonder he wants you to stay offended. He knows that your miracle is on the other side of every offense. I feel God's presence in here today. I feel healing breaking forth in here today. Somebody right now, I'm telling you, that's why you had to be in service. The enemy didn't want you to hear this word, but I'm telling you, your miracle is on the other side. You got to say, God, help me get over it. They were asking, when do we bring the miracle out? We had a pre-service meeting. I said, don't you bring it out until I get over every one of those offenses. But it was in the back the whole time. Whole time. God's got your miracle. But you got to say, God, give me the grace and the strength to get over it. Would you stand to your feet?